Modern ethnicity sport in the United Kingdom plays an important role in British culture. The United Kingdom has given birth to a large majority of the team sports including association football, badminton, billiards, bowls, boxing, British baseball, rounders, cricket, croquet, curling, darts, golf, fives, field hockey, netball, rugby, tennis, table tennis, snooker, motorcycle speedway, squash, water polo, and shinty. Moreover, the standardization of various sports, such as in rowing, dance sports and motorsports occurred in the United Kingdom. This has meant that in the infancy of many sports, the home nations England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland formed among the earliest separate governing bodies, national teams and domestic league competitions. After 1922 some sports formed separate bodies for Northern Ireland, though some continued to be organized on an all-Ireland basis. In a small number of sports, these teams are supplemented by high-profile events featuring a combined team representing one or more nations. Overall, association football attracts the most viewer and money, though the nation is notable for the diversity of its sporting interests, especially at the elite level. Major individual sports include athletics, cycling, motorsport, and horse racing. Tennis is the highest profile sport for the 2 weeks of the Wimbledon Championships, but otherwise struggles to hold its own in the country of its birth. Snooker and darts, too, enjoy period profile boosts in line with the holding of their largest events. Many other sports are also played and followed to a lesser degree. There is much debate over which sport has the most active participants, with swimming, athletics, cycling all found to have wider active participation than association football in the 2010 Sport England Active People Survey, writing about has explained the role of Puritan power, the English Civil War, and the restoration of the monarchy in England. The Long Parliament in 1642 banned theatres, which had met with Puritan disapproval. Although similar action would be taken against certain sports, it is not clear if cricket was in any way prohibited, except that players must not break the Sabbath. In 1660, the restoration of the monarchy in England was immediately followed by the reopening of the theatres, and so any sanctions that had been imposed by the Puritans on cricket would also have been lifted. He goes on to make the key point that political, social and economic conditions in the aftermath of the Restoration encouraged excessive gambling. So much so that a Gambling Act was deemed necessary in 1664. It is certain that cricket, horse racing and boxing were financed by gambling interests. Leach explains that it was the habit of cricket patrons, all of whom were gamblers, to form strong teams through the 18th century to represent their interests. He defines a strong team as one representative of more than one parish, and he is certain that such teams were first assembled in or immediately after 1660, prior to the English Civil War and the Commonwealth. All available evidence concludes that cricket had evolved to the level of village cricket only, where teams that are strictly representative of individual parishes compete. The strong teams of the post-Restoration marked the evolution of cricket from the parish standard to the county standard. This was the point of origin for major or first-class cricket. The year 1660 also marks the origin of professional team sport. Cricket had become well established among the English upper class in the 18th century, and was a major factor in sports competition among the public schools. Army units around the empire had time on their hands, and encouraged the locals to learn cricket so they could have some entertaining competition. Most of the empire embraced cricket, with the exception of Canada. Cricket test matches began by the 1870s. The first and most famous rivalry is that between Australia and England for the Ashes. A number of the public schools such as Winchester and Eton introduced variants of football and other sports for their pupils. These were described at the time as innocent and lawful, certainly in comparison with the rougher rural games. With urbanization in the 19th century, the rural games moved to the new urban centers and came under the influence of the middle and upper classes. The rules and regulations devised at English institutions began to be applied to the wider game, with governing bodies in England being set up for a number of sports by the end of the 19th century. The rising influence of the upper class also produced an emphasis on the amateur and the spirit of fair play. The Industrial Revolution also brought with it increasing mobility, and created the opportunity for universities in Britain and elsewhere to compete with one another. This sparked increasing attempts to unify and reconcile various games in England, leading to the establishment of the football.